feeling? How are you?
Welcome to Nested, an original podcast from the White Wren featuring intersected stories about love, life at home, and everything in between. Our mission is to inspire and encourage you in prioritizing tangible interactions that take place within the four walls of your family home. Each episode, we talk to interesting people who have a heart for making time for the things that matter most in life. Let's dive into this episode.
We'll find our way back home. We'll find our way back home. No, we'll never have to walk alone. We'll find our way back.
For this episode, Brent Deitrich, publisher at the White Wren, sits down to chat with Adrianne Shelton of Beatific Visions.
All right, awesome. Cool. Let's get started. Why don't you start by just telling me a little bit kind of about you, your business, sort of what you do in a nutshell.
Sure. So my name is Adrianne Shelton. I'm the owner of Beatific Visions Photography. I am located in Hanover, just outside of Richmond, Virginia. I specialize in families, which means I'll do family portraiture. I will do newborn sessions, maternity. So I like to follow the whole journey of everything that happens after the wedding. You know, wedding photography is such a huge industry. It's beautiful. We all love following wedding photographers, and I did that for years. I was so inspired. But what happens when you're already married and life continues? So that's the gap that I have always been looking to fill. Always wanted in my life. I had my oldest daughter when I was very young. I was 20 years old. So like I started this journey really early, and it's really important to me that people get not just the wedding, not just the ceremony and all of the candid shots, but also, what happens after you start having kids and live your adult life together.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever do wedding photography then, or was it just you always started out kind of this way?
Yeah, so I did a couple of weddings on my own. That was when I was just starting out, kind of learning my way around a camera and how to interact with people.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually owe a lot of my confidence and success to being a second shooter for a wedding photographer that lived in Culpeper when I was there. So I probably shot, 30 weddings or so with her. She's amazing. She was wonderful to follow around. So as far as, my posing and kind of learning to work with people, especially in tense situations on a time limit,
Mm-hmm.
I did learn so much from weddings in that sense without having to be the point person for all the planning.
Yeah. Was it like, so did you, you said you had your first kid at 20, so was that kind of, like at that point, was that sort of when you sort of knew I want to do more than just wedding photography, or how long after having kids did you do wedding photography?
No, so my daughter is 16. She'll be 17 next week, actually. I did not start taking photos for other people until my middle child was born, and she's 8 now, almost 9.
Okay.
So that was the point that I kind of discovered my love for photography. It's kind of interesting. I grew up, my mom was a professional family photographer. So you would think that I would have thought when I was younger, oh, this is really fun. This is something I want to get into. And I think there's something about your parent doing it when you're younger that actually makes you think, this probably isn't for me. She's really good at it. And, I helped her because she paid me to help her. But not realizing that when you take the pictures yourself, there is just something so magical about it and creating that art with other families. So I didn't discover it really until I was a little older and had my middle child and really just realized how fast my oldest was growing up and how much she had changed, in the first 8 years of her life. So that is
Yeah.
when I started seeing it.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, I know for me, like, besides the White Wren stuff, like, we have our own photography and videography business as well with a couple different photographers and videographers working for us. And that point, like, my oldest daughter is 9. And so that point of, like, when she was born was when I started to sort of look at things and I was like, I don't want to work this much. I want to have more people working for me doing this stuff. And then I think that sort of dovetails into kind of what we do and where we're going with the White Wren too, where we started it like primarily focused on weddings, but now we're like, let's talk about all the things that take place inside the four walls of home, because that's essentially what happens after the wedding day. That's what you're starting, right? So,
Exactly. Yep.
so I know you talk about this on your website, but for everybody who hasn't gone there, let's talk about your business name, because I know that has a meaning for you, and I'm glad that you pronounced it, because I wasn't sure if I had it right in my head. So,
Yes. It's funny. I think a lot of people read it and they're like, "Oh, there's a typo." It's because it just sounds like it would be Beatific or something, but it's not. So,
yeah.
my husband is an Episcopal priest, and obviously, a lot of things that he talks about just kind of get into my own heart and head. And I remember when we were first dating, he had me read this book by Thomas Aquinas, which is just crazy because I'm not a theologian. I'm not that much of a reader when it comes to that.
Here's some
But
first
it
date
really stuck
some
with
first date
me. Yeah,
material.
exactly. I'm not joking. It was very early on. Um, so Thomas Aquinas is actually a Catholic theologian, and he talks about the beatific vision being this like ultimate beautiful image that we only see through God. The what creation was meant to be from the start. And I do think um, really as an artist, especially focusing on family, being able to see that from a different perspective. And I talk about this a lot too. When you're a parent and you're chasing your toddlers around and they're screaming and they're punching each other, it's really hard to see exactly how beautiful this creation is.
Mm,
And so from the start, I like immediately within, I was like, I think I want to start charging people. What should I call my business? And I was like, Beatific Visions, because I drive down the road and I just like watch the light filter through the trees and I see these things and I missed those for so many years of my life. I wasn't paying attention to it. But now that I have a framework and a literal lens to look through, and think about things in a more, you know, godlike way, how
mm-hmm,
things are meant to be created. Um, Being able to recognize that and show it back to people has been really important to me. And one other thing, when I started photography, like I said, my daughter, who's 8 now, she was little. So we had just moved from Northern Virginia to Culpeper, Virginia, which is a little outside of the Beltway, maybe like an hour. And we
mm-hmm,
didn't know anyone. We went to a new church there because, my husband was called to a church there. And like from the get go, I made really, really good friends with a girl named Sarah, who now actually paints my backdrop. She's the Willow Canvas backdrop painter.
okay.
And she was starting what's called Young Lives. It's a spinoff of Young Life, and it's actually for teen moms. She was starting that in Culpeper. So I got involved as the on the committee and as the committee chair, and I ended up taking photographs of these teen moms and their babies once again to show them how beautiful this life is and how beautiful it is that they're raising this child. And I mean they made a human being. I mean, it's absolutely
Mm-hmm,
crazy. So I just wanted to show that back, and that's pretty much, I started posting things like that, and that's when people started asking me to photograph things. So it's spun off of there. I never want to get away from that image that I want to portray.
mm-hmm.
So I will probably photograph families for the rest of my life.
That's really cool. That's such an awesome story. And I bet you get, like, with your business name, then you probably get like a lot of opportunities that people are like, what does that mean? And you get to tell that story to people too, right?
Yeah, exactly. And like
Yeah.
you, most of them first ask how you pronounce it. So
Yeah.
it's a learning opportunity.
That's great. Wow. So, before you got into doing that, you were just working with your family business then? Or were, like, you said you didn't ever think that necessarily you were, like, what was your career path that you thought you were going to go into, or that you were interested in, I guess?
Yeah, so I was an optician for 5 years because that was
Oh,
something that
yeah.
was really easy to get into when my first daughter was born. I was like, I really can't finish college. I mean, I could. There are a lot of people that do. But
Mm-hmm.
for me, I wanted to be able to raise my daughter. And becoming an optician was like you get a job and you get a skill and you get paid a decent amount of money. And it was
Mm-hmm.
great for me. After that, I worked 2 years in one place, 3 years in another, actually in Richmond. And then my dad had started his company a couple years prior. He had been in surgical sales already, and he needed a sales rep in Northern Virginia. And I'm like, I can't sell a thing. Don't don't look at me. But my now husband and I were dating. He was actually in his last year of seminary in Northern Virginia. He ended up getting a job in Northern Virginia. So I'm like, great. I guess this is what we're doing. So my daughter and I moved um, to Centerville. My now husband lived in Falls Church, and
Mm-hmm.
we just went for it. It's amazing to think the risks that I was willing to take when I was younger that I would never do now. But
Yeah.
so I was in surgical sales for the whole time we were up there, which was I think about 4 years, and then the first couple of years when we were in Culpeper too, before kind
Okay.
of transitioning to more of the service part.
Did your optician background, did that come into, do you think that that played like a subtle role when you named your business with the visions part?
Um, no,
It's kind of interesting.
I don't think so actually.
No.
But it is kind of funny with the
Yeah.
with the glasses looking back now because they have, the Zeiss lenses and the Zeiss anti-reflective coating. So like that came back full circle. Um,
Yeah.
so that played
That's
in a little
funny.
bit.
That is funny. So, so you started your business, and then how soon? So you did mostly family photography, and then what kind of transpired that led you into the Kindred Path? Like, let's talk about that a little bit too, and sort of the birth of that, and what inspired you, and how that dovetailed into your business and what you do.
Yeah. So I I am really big into having a community.
Mm-hmm.
I know that, a lot of people in different industries maybe don't want to connect with people in their industry close by. I'm completely the opposite. I think we as artists are all unique, and, there is a way to be different and get different clients, and that's all good. So I was still living in Culpeper. I wanted to start a publication. I really have a passion for helping other people grow and making them feel confident about their work and learning together. Um, then COVID hit. So
Mm-hmm.
guess what? I didn't have to commute from Culpeper to Richmond anymore, which was an hour and a half each way because I was working from home. So I found myself with 3 extra hours a day and time to build a website and an Instagram. And I literally, I think I spent like a day coming up with the name. And the next day, just started building the website, open Instagram, and just went for it. Because
Mm-hmm.
when I want to do something, I just do it. And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. But that's kind of how things transpire for me. So I threw it up there. I started, putting just my own pictures up there because um, I didn't have permission to use anyone else's yet. But quickly, I mean, within like 2 weeks, people were using the hashtag and tagging and submitting sessions. So it really grew from there. I've met some amazing people. All of our educational articles online are free, but we do in person workshops that we just started last year. So I had no idea that's where it was going to go when I
Mm-hmm.
started it. But the symbolism behind the kindred path, kindred being family and also similar in spirit, um, you know, just having a similar path that we're all going down and being able to walk together is just a wonderful thing. And you don't have to share all of your tips and tricks, but it's great to get to know people that have really similar passions to you.
Yeah. So is it like what's behind it? Is there like a forum, or is it just is it a place where people talk to each other, or more just a place where people can get like education and stuff like that?
Yeah, so right now we don't have a forum or a group.
Mm,
I don't have the time to moderate it.
no, I hear
I
you.
I've seen how some groups can kind of go awry sometimes, and I don't want to accidentally not have time and accidentally foster something that's not beautiful and isn't
Mm-hmm.
pleasant to be in. So um there isn't one now. That being said, every time we do a workshop, we do have a small group where they
Yeah.
can continue talking to each other. So our first one was in August. We still have that one open in a private Facebook group, and they still ask each other questions and ask us questions and opinions, and they got to be really good friends. And now we're about to do our second one in Savannah, Georgia next month. So now that one has a group, and they're already in there connecting with each other and trying to figure out places to stay together and things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
the Kindred Path right now, yes, we have the free education. We're doing Instagram takeovers where people can, ask any questions they want to. We
Mm-hmm.
share probably 4 or so images that tagged us per week, just to promote other photographers as well. We do promote other people's mentorship options. We want to put everything out there, and one place to find, because family photography, like I said, I mean, this industry is really just like getting started, in the sense that like the wedding industry started years and years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting big, and I'm so happy to see that happening. Um, so yeah, we're doing it in a more intimate way, but also a
Yeah.
more broad way. So there's no in between right now.
Yeah. That's cool. I think that like just the sense of community and like building community is so important. I feel like it's something, and especially like in-person community. Um, we were talking about this over the weekend, even my wife and I just after church on Sunday, like we were just discussing some things and some other things that I'm involved in locally with community building and talking about how like you used to have more things that people engaged in locally, like civic clubs, um, just even like different activity things. And it feels like a lot of that has kind of like the younger generation isn't as interested in it maybe, and they think that their fulfillment from a social perspective is coming from social media and from internet actions, or interactions rather, is what I mean to say. But there's just there's no real substitute for it. Like when you get a group of people together and you can like hug each other, talk to each other, have a one-on-one conversation, even when you disagree on things, you can still work it out because you're sitting there in the same room talking to people. Where online, when people disagree with each other, it just becomes a, big debate. Um, but I think that is such a core thing that's missing right now from society in general. So anytime I think that you can get a group of people together like that with some common interests, I think it's a good thing.
Yep, I totally agree. I mean, that's what I tell my husband all the time. A lot of people don't know what they're missing if they haven't experienced that.
Mm-hmm.
If they are living their lives on social media, it's not a healthy way to be.
Yeah.
If that's their entire life, and unfortunately, I do see that happening, especially with young people, and especially because the pandemic happened. So there was like a whole year and a half or so that they may not have had any interaction that wasn't online.
Yeah.
But yeah, with church, I talk about this all the time. I mean, where else are you going to find a whole group of people, young and old, completely opposite political views,
Mm-hmm.
everything, and they're coming together, and those are our family. And it doesn't, for
Mm-hmm.
us, we've been at 3 different churches. They're all family. I mean, as soon as you walk in, you have you just have the expectation that you're going to be friends, and that's
Yeah.
kind of how our workshop called, and we call it gather, and we call it a community workshop, because that's what it is. Because it's not just us teaching at people; you're all
Mm-hmm.
there to answer each other's questions and inspire each other as well.
Yeah. That's awesome. And everybody who comes there, they're pretty much in the same path of like doing family photography? Is that the general kind of bond?
Yes, yeah, it's
Okay.
definitely all family. I'm seeing a lot, because of several other publications out there, a lot of motherhood photographers. That
Mm-hmm.
counts. That's totally fine. Our styled sessions that we do are going to be focused more on family, because we really want connection. We don't want one person. That's our that's like our one thing. If you're going to submit to us, it can't be just a newborn by itself.
Yeah.
There needs to be mom's hand or something. The whole everything about the Kindred Path is about being with one another. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, it's all focused on family. I love having dads in there. That being said, one of our sessions for this one is going to be maternity,
Mm-hmm.
just because we're trying to do it in the middle of Savannah, Georgia. We don't want kids running around the streets. But the
Yeah.
other one is going to be a full family. So we love having everybody. I mean, dad's important too.
Yeah.
Mom's really important. Mom, I see I see the trend for motherhood photography, and I totally get it, because oftentimes mom is the one with the phone, taking the pictures. But
Mm-hmm.
it's so important to me to include dad, even if even if sometimes he doesn't want to be there for a full
Yeah.
hour. But come on, we
Yeah.
love you. Let's do it.
No, I totally get that. Totally get that. So where do you like how big do you see this getting? What's your long range goals with it all, and like how do you see it like always being kind of an accessory to your photography business, or do you see it as becoming something bigger than that, or are you like me and you
Yeah.
just haven't thought past the next 12 months yet?
I see it. I can see it becoming really big. Like I said, I had no idea where it was going to go, and it has a mind of its own. And I love Marie Pilkins
Mm-hmm.
from Marie Elizabeth Photography, and she's my partner. She is so go with the flow. She has wonderful ideas, but she's like, just tell me what to do. We'll do it. Like, let's go. Um, which is wonderful because I'm like, all right, I want to do 2 workshops in 2023. She's like, great. Where do you want to go? When do you want to do it? And we just do it. Like I said, if I want to plan something, we just do.
Yeah.
And it's a great way to be. And because of that, I think it's grown significantly in the last year.
Mm-hmm.
And we're making a name for ourselves, which is great. We really don't care about a certain aesthetic, a certain style.
Mm.
A lot of our photographers do love film, which is great. But you don't have to. We don't. None of our workshops so far have been focused on film. We may
Yeah.
in the future. We may, start to kind of have smaller groups for workshops, focused on one particular thing. But right now, it's like we get the feedback of what they want to learn, and then we make sure we're talking about it. So, yep.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like in the last couple of years, film has been, I mean, obviously there's been a lot that's been discontinued. And so a lot of people have adapted in other ways. And a lot of people have been shooting digital to look like film anyway. So I feel like in a way, film is less important. I mean, we like that aesthetic with what we publish at the White Wren. Obviously, just kind of that timeless, clean, classic look. But we don't say it has to be exclusively film, just that that's the aesthetic that we like. But yeah, how did you and Marie connect? Tell me the
Yeah.
story about how that
So,
happened.
um, so when I started the Kindred Path, like I said, it was tiny. I was like, let's just do this. So I sent it out. Marie was one of the first ones to submit.
Okay.
And when the Instagram posting every day got to be a bit much for me, which I think was only like 6 months in, probably. It was actually I started it 3 years ago, like last week.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I reached out to her and 2 other girls that had also submitted and were a little more conversational. They didn't just submit and like let it go. They were like, "Oh, tell me more. I would love to be more involved." So I reached out to all 3 of them, um, just trying to gauge interest if any of them had extra time to help with Instagram posting. You know, reach out to photographers for educational articles, things like that. All three
Mm-hmm.
of them said yes. So for about a year, there were 4 of us. And we met like once every 2 months on Zoom and bounced ideas back and forth. And then one at a time, the other two, either their businesses were growing exponentially or they had something else that they needed to commit their time to. So they needed to step back, which is fine because again, that's also what we're all about. We want to be able to spend time with family.
Right.
Um, Maria and I have stuck it out, and I think we've been on our own for a little over a year, maybe now, um, and we've been able to pivot really well with only 2 of us. So that's how we connected. We met up
Mm-hmm.
for the first time after she was already a part of the Kindred Path, for me to do her family photos, and I actually went 2 days ago up to her motherhood event with my kids in Alexandria,
Nice.
Virginia. So she did our pictures too. But we've met up several times now. We need to get our families together. It's been a
Yeah.
bit much, but yeah,
Yeah.
she's wonderful.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I didn't realize that that was tied together until I was on your website, and since you all were both collaborative members with the White Wren, I was like, oh, that's fun. I always like to see
Yeah.
when people in our community are doing things together and doing fun little projects.
Hmm.
So, I want to kind of like go back a little bit too, and I want to sort of talk about like kind of a combo of like balancing work life family, because we sort of started to touch on that a little bit, and then kind of like how being a pastor's wife or a pastor's family like affects you all with that, like how, because I know that can be a really demanding thing as well, right? Like people um look at him, look at your family, maybe have some expectations of like the way things should be, and like do you how does that tie into your business? Like do you use that as a like a learning opportunity for people to like show how to balance all that stuff, or how do you feel about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, no, my husband does a really great job. When he gets to a new church, he introduces himself. And I've seen him do this now twice. He introduces himself and says, "Hey, I just want to make you guys clear on my priorities in my life. God comes first, my
Mm-hmm.
family comes second, and the church comes third,
Mm.
for better or for worse." So just saying that, like the first day, um, we really haven't had any issues with people having expectations of things that would be outside of normal. I mean, pastoral emergencies, absolutely, like he needs to go. But people are really, really more understanding than, a lot of people give them credit for if they know the
Mm-hmm.
boundaries from the get-go. We live in the rectory, so we live literally across the street from the church. The church owns this house and also my now studio, which was a finished detached garage out back, which is great and
Nice.
improved their property value. But
Yeah.
no one has ever come knocking on our door without, being invited. So, which is
Yeah.
shocking. I thought for sure people would be coming over here for all sorts of stuff. They don't.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, so that's been a wonderful balance. And I sing in the choir. I love to sing. I really thought when I was a little kid, I thought for sure I was just going to be a singer. I mean, that was
Oh
it.
yeah.
So,
Nice.
um, but I sing in the choir. I'm gonna do the church directory photos. I take photos on Easter of every family that comes in our little church garden. I love
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. I mean, when I first started out, I was like, can I please take pictures during all of the services? I mean, I just love it. Again, just capturing beauty wherever you can find it, giving it back to people. Now I
Mm-hmm.
happen to, charge for portrait sessions, but I still do the things that I want to do. And there's a difference there. Um, because when I want to give someone something, I just do it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and like I said, they've become family. We've been at this church for 2 years now, and
Okay.
it doesn't seem like it's been that long. I was pregnant when we got here, so
Mm.
it's crazy to me.
Yeah. I know time flies, especially when you have kids. It just
Hmm.
feels like a year just goes by so quick. It's pretty wild.
Definitely.
So you mentioned church directory. You all do like a printed church directory still? I don't feel like everybody. I don't know if the churches in North Carolina around here do that yet. We were actually talking about that recently as like kind of a. I was talking about it, I think, with somebody on my team, and we were like, this would be a fun little throwback thing to do for people at their weddings, like take their photo booth pictures and put it in like a glossy church directory book. Like these are all the people that were at your wedding, sort of thing.
Yeah, that'd be amazing, and get their address so they can send them like
Yeah.
their Christmas cards and stuff.
Yes.
That's a great
Yes.
idea.
Yeah.
They will print it. Most people have a phone and the internet now. So they
Mm-hmm.
actually use, I think it's like churchdirectory.com or something, and there's an app for it. You can log
Oh,
in, so
okay.
that way it's always up to date. But they do print them as well. And
But they still
at
have a
other
session
churches,
like where people come in and
mhm.
get their pictures taken.
Yeah, I mean, you
That's
can
fun.
submit a photo of your family because
Okay.
so many people do get family photos now. But I am going to do it on a Sunday morning after church and then a Monday, just so people can drop in with the backdrop. They can also use their photo from Easter. That will do. But yeah, it's kind of fun. There was the first church we were at in Northern Virginia. They were getting a company to come in and do church directory photos, and it was going to cost them a fortune. So I would see that as a ministry. It's good to be able to see the faces, especially as a newcomer, to be able to recognize people and kind of get to know them.
That's awesome. Um, is there any like what other things, so I mean besides photography and the Kindred Path and your family and church responsibilities, it sounds like you've got a lot going on. Do you like what are the things that you do for fun or to kind of unwind, or like what are things that you like to do with family too?
Yeah. So Wherever we've lived, we've kind of found places nearby that we can just walk around, or like get a membership to a historical site or something. So,
Mm.
obviously, I don't just like photography. I love photography. So I bring my 35 millimeter camera everywhere we go. So we go to like Colonial Williamsburg a lot, walk around their gardens, go in the shops because my 8-year-old loves to shop.
Mm.
So we do that. We go to botanical gardens, things like that. I hop on Saturday mornings. But yeah, it's typically our Saturdays, because on Sundays, everyone's really tired after church. I mean, it's just a lot going on.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I just call it going on adventures. We just go explore. Or if I want to, see a new place for photos, I'll take my poor family with me.
Yeah. You're like, come and model for me here. Let me see what the light looks like on you.
Exactly.
How do you keep from like how do you keep from getting burnt out on doing pictures, like to the point where you still like taking your camera with on like family adventures and doing stuff like that, or do you kind of limit like the amount of work that you do to sort of balance that out?
Yeah, I do limit it. Um, I have like I will have a couple of days here and there where I'm burnt out, and that can be a lot of different things, whether it's photography or not. But I can definitely feel it when that inspiration is starting to drain. So I will step back from it a little bit. Um, I typically only do maybe like 3 to 5 sessions a month tops, full sessions, and then I sprinkle in some events. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll do like a whole day many sessions on a flower farm here that we have in July, because
Mm.
it's going to be peak season, and I've already started promoting that. So I've already got a list going for that. That gets a lot of clients in that want to see me, but either, can't afford a full session, or I don't have time to get them in the calendar for a full session. So I do limit that right now. I work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. I try to go to the gym a couple times a week, whether that happens or not. And I do have to do most of my sessions if they're in the cooler months on a weekend. So,
Mm.
because the sun sets too early. Now, in the summer, I can do them after work. That's not a problem. So I do
Yeah.
have more in the late spring, summer, early fall. But over the winter, I don't do that much unless it's newborn or maternity, because those kind of have to happen when they happen.
Yeah, yeah. You have an indoor studio too, you said? Or
Yeah.
it's just your
So
office?
no, we finished half of a 2-car detached garage out here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's insulated. It's got nice floors. My daughter and I painted the walls and ceiling ourselves. And like I said, my friend Sarah paints beautiful backdrops. I've probably got like 10 of them now. It's actually the reason that I even built that studio, was because she started painting all these backdrops and I photographed them for her. So we needed a consistent place to photograph those. And,
Mm-hmm.
now I can do like milestone sessions in there, maternity, things like that.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's awesome. I have seen those backdrops. They're really, really beautiful. I think we've even done some features on the White Wren as well that had them in them. But
Yeah, I think
that's
so.
cool. That's cool. Do you ever like host events then at your space, or where do you for the Kindred Path groups or gatherings, or are they always somewhere else offsite?
Yeah, they're offsite. I don't have a bathroom. That's the only thing
Mm,
that really keeps me from, because they'd have to come into my house,
right.
which may or may not look great or have screaming children at that time. We do have a really wonderful, actually, I guess there's two, but I've only been in one, um, photo studio downtown for rent. It's called Contrast. I hosted my motherhood event there, so we had our hair and makeup artist there. Food, obviously, there's bathrooms there, which is great. And they have windows on both sides of the building, like the whole wall is windows.
Mm-hmm.
So it has beautiful light, and, it's really affordable and they're easy to work with. So, um, when we did our workshop here in Richmond, we rented an Airbnb, made sure we had permission to photograph inside, and have we do host 15 attendees for that. So it ends up being a really big group. Um, so we did that, and then our one styled session we did in the Airbnb, and another one we did at a historic site here in Richmond, and then in Savannah, both of ours will be outdoor sessions, but we're also renting an Airbnb for that too. We kind of like the cozy home vibe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. I heard that like some Airbnb owners are getting more picky about that now. Like they're like no photo shoots in our place or something like that.
Especially in Savannah, because a lot of them are historic homes.
Oh yeah.
Um, so I don't know if there might be like a situation with that. So it was a little bit trickier
Yeah.
than we realized to find one there. We thought we might have to actually rent a space like an event venue, but we did find one, which is great. And we're not going to do the session in there unless it rains. So we do have permission if we have to, but
Hmm.
obviously preferably using natural light outdoors would be better.
Yeah, yeah. Nice. So did you I know you said you like it's not a requirement on like shooting film or whatever, like there's not a particular aesthetic, but like where do you draw your own personal aesthetic from? Did you start with film or just have you kind of just developed a look through the years of what you shoot, or where do you get that from?
Yeah, so I started digital. I told this story on my Instagram the other day because it's kind of sad and ridiculous. My mom obviously shot film when I
Yeah.
was growing up, and her last camera purchase, she did have a Pentax. But her last camera purchase was a Hasselblad, and it was like the newest, the greatest. I mean, thousands and thousands of dollars she paid, and she used it for a couple years, and then she kind of got out of the industry and like so I started shooting film like 4 years ago, and about 3 or 4 months before I started shooting film, I sold her Hasselblad for her. I was like, oh no. But it just looked so cumbersome. I'm like, I'm never going to shoot film. This is just ridiculous. And then I ended up buying a 35 millimeter camera. I shot one roll of film, and I'm like, I'm never going back. This is, this is
Yeah.
me. And it made me realize, because I had gone through like so many presets for Lightroom, just trying to find. I'm like, what is it? You know what I really love is that minty green. Like I told
Mm,
my husband, I'm like, that's what I like. The green has to be soft and beautiful. And then
mm,
I realized that was Fujifilm. So once I discovered that, that's kind of how I got into film. And I would totally shoot film only if I could, but it's just not practical with kids. It's
yeah.
not. They're running around, they're so fast. You have to
Hmm.
do all lighting scenarios. Sometimes you're indoors.
Yeah.
I want to have a backup. I don't want to get a blink and have to correct, everyone's eyeballs. So
Right.
I shoot both at every session.
Yeah, yeah. And then Fuji went and discontinued their film.
I know, and right now you can still get it. So I'm just like hoarding. I'm like, I don't care if it expires. I have like 30 rolls in my fridge.
Yeah. I recently discovered that Fuji is building like a factory near me where I live in North Carolina, or some kind of like it's a big industrial building. I drove by it the other day. It's like 15 minutes from where I live, and it's like future home of Fujifilm, and I was like, and what are they gonna make in there?
What are they gonna do?
I mean, apparently they
Bring
do
it
make
back.
some stocks yet and some other like um I guess they own Instax. Is that
Yeah, I
do
think,
they
yeah, they do.
right?
I
Yeah.
think they do because
So,
I bought my daughter one of those. I'm pretty sure it said that.
yeah. So I don't know. I don't know what they're making. It was interesting to see that, and also like just in this area, like I don't know of any other film companies near me, but pretty cool.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
how do your kids feel about all this? Like do they like to get involved with your business, or are they like, because I know you said like your mom was a photographer and now you are, and so are they like that's what I want to be, or they're like nah?
Well, it's always hard to tell. But, I have a teenager, and she did. Her birthday's on Monday, and I asked her a couple weeks ago what she wanted, and she was like, "I think I want a camera." I was like, "Oh, do you?" That's so exciting. She's very artistic, can draw anything. So maybe, definitely a different aesthetic than me. But and then my 8-year-old, who's almost 9, it's really, I mean, she's definitely into it. This is like the sweet spot, the age where you can hand them a camera and tell them
Yeah.
how to focus it, and like they get it right. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So a lot of a lot of the photos of me on my Instagram now are taken by my 8-year-old. Um,
Oh,
so yeah, I could
that's awesome.
definitely. She did tell my husband yesterday that she wants to be a teacher and a photographer when she grows up. So I guess it's rubbing off.
Nice. That's what my oldest is my daughter is 9, and that's her thing too. She's always talking about being a photographer, amidst of a lot of other things too. Like she wants to be a monster truck driver. She wants to have a
Yeah.
store for children where everything is free. She wants to be an artist. She likes to paint with like canvases. She wants to be a photographer. Every day
Yep.
it changes. But we had a family wedding this past week, and so um, that was interesting because it was much longer for me than a normal wedding because my wife was in the bridal party. It was my wife's sister. And so we had to be there early. I was there for 12 hours. Of course, we were doing the photography for it too. But my daughter, this was the highlight for her because just about every time I leave to go to a wedding to photograph it, she says, "Can I go with this time? Can I come with you and work this time?" And so last week she was like, "I can take pictures today now, right?" So I
That's great.
did give her my camera for a little while, and I actually meant to bring like a disposable film camera with and just kind of let her go to town on it during the day, just shooting a bunch of different things. And in the midst of getting the 3 kids up and around and there and everything, that was one of the things I forgot. But she did shoot a little bit with my other one, and she had a blast with it.
Yeah. Do people still do where they leave the disposable film cameras out for people to take and then like drop them back off at weddings?
I feel like I've maybe seen it a handful of times over the years, but not very many. I mean, everybody just does like cell phone pictures and,
Oh,
share it afterwards or something. But we actually had those at our wedding 15 years ago. We threw down
yeah, we did
some
too.
instant, or not instant, but disposable film cameras on tables and
Yeah.
left them around. But they're fun. I mean, I think that I like that aesthetic of event capture is kind of coming back where things feel a little bit less um, precise and curated and a little bit more off the cuff and spontaneous.
Hmm.
It's like people went from the era of like documentary stuff where everything was like exaggerated wide angles and just like weird things, and then it sort of was like they were like, well, let's dial this back and make it more refined and editorial, and then it became the film era, and now that film era has kind of evolved into this where everything looks like it was taken on a disposable camera, right? Where it's like
Yeah.
lots of grain, lots of blur, lots of direct flash, but it's still film,
Uh-huh.
you know.
Yep.
So, but I like it. I'm a fan of it. I think it's
I
cool
am
and
too.
fun. Yeah. So, I know you said about like kind of the thing with the teen moms was one of the things that led you into your photography thing. Is there any other like stories that you have? How long have you been doing photography? Did you say? I don't know if you said that
Um,
in the beginning.
a little over 7 years.
Okay. So in that 7 years, is there like a moment where you had something happen that you were like, yeah, this is why I do this? Or
Yeah.
like a
Oh,
particular
yes.
person you touched or something like that?
Yeah. I right before we moved here from Culpeper, um, I had a family reach out. They were trying to find a photographer within like a week or two, and her husband was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and they had moved. I can't remember what state they were in, but they were temporarily living in Northern Virginia in an Airbnb for a trial, and they knew it wasn't working, so they reached out for a family session. I mean, and I
Mm,
accidentally came across it the other day because I keep my galleries forever, and I was just like, oh my gosh, it just the fact that I got to be that for someone just
mm-hmm,
blows my mind. It was, they had 3 children from teenager like all the way down to like 5, and it was heartbreaking, but also so beautiful that they thought, while he is healthy enough to do this, like we're going to do this and we are going to be happy about it.
mm-hmm.
Um so that probably touched me more than them, to be honest, because I mean, what an honor. Just the fact that we can do that, and that is what we're all about, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we want our grandkids to see these pictures, and if you don't have them, you don't have them. So um yeah, I think that was a big one for me. Of course, the teen moms were a big one for me. I wish that someone had taken my picture, with my baby when I was 20. I was
Yeah.
taking photos, of course, with just little digital cameras, but definitely different than what I offer to those moms. And I look for opportunities like that all the time. So um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I've come across a lot of wonderful stories, a lot of details about other people's lives, and I talk about this all the time. It's really, really intimate to take someone's portrait. I mean, we are like
Mm-hmm.
zooming in on your face, on every little detail of how you act with your family, how you walk, everything. Um, so getting to know people in that way, it's like I want to present myself out there in a way that people can get to know me because it's like almost not fair that I
Mm-hmm.
get to know them that well.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I think that's the biggest one. That one blew my mind.
that's awesome. Yeah. Do you feel like I feel like there's this and maybe you address this like in your Kindred Path education or maybe even with families and stuff, but like I fear like the era that we're in that we've been in for like the last, I don't know, 10 to 15 years probably, because with the advent of cell phones, um doesn't it kind of feel like we're going to be in like a digital dark age after a while, that all these, like, we take more pictures than ever, but where are they going? Like, what are they doing? And how are you said about like your grandkids and stuff, like seeing these pictures, like how are they going to see those pictures? Like, are they going to just have to like sift through hard drives? Like, what do you
Yeah.
think about all of that? Like, I don't know what the path forward out of that is to like have tangible things to leave behind. Or is the
Yeah,
digital the tangible, which feels kind of yucky.
yeah, it's not. It's definitely not. I mean, gosh, if your computer falls out the window and cracks, like that's all your photos. Like we're talking
Mm,
thousands and thousands of everything that you took. Your investment in a photographer, if you never print it and you lose that hard drive, I mean, it's gone. And those things are small. um, I do
mm-hmm.
like, there is a movement. Like, I can definitely see a movement that's come down even in the last 2 years that I'm seeing on social media, in my peers, really, really pushing products and artwork. For multiple reasons, but for me, it's definitely, I'm one of the worst offenders. I I airdrop everything to my phone and I upload
Yeah.
it, um, and taking the time to print that, and I don't really care how you print it, but if you can print it with a lab that actually creates quality artwork that's going to last for 200 years, let's do it. So I did start offering um, artwork this year. I could have, I mean, I offered it forever, like it was just in the gallery when they saw their gallery, like, do you want to buy your images? Of course they don't, because they don't know why they would want to buy their images because we haven't been talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I did start that literally in January. I've got a full like product catalog. I have switched to not just sending someone their gallery and just having them download it. I have switched to kind of a more a la carte model. And for me, even more than making money, it's about people understanding what they're getting when they purchase their images. So,
Mm-hmm.
if they buy artwork, then they're going to get their digitals for free. I mean, that's great, but that's
Mm-hmm.
the ideal scenario. So, I'm now setting a time when their gallery is ready, setting up a Zoom meeting with them, viewing it with them, which will also help me learn, what they really love and what they don't for
Yeah.
future clients, and then just presenting options. I mean, I think going through albums with your grandchildren is like one of the biggest gifts because it's a book. I mean, you can go on a bookshelf. It doesn't have to be on the walls. Those are so hard to move. I do offer those too, but um, there's a lot of wonderful things about having everything printed. I know I've seen several people post about studies about boosting, your children's confidence by showing their pictures on the wall. Just
Mm.
them feeling valued by seeing their own images is wonderful. My mom, she has literally like a whole closet. I talk about this a lot too. A whole closet upstairs in her guest bedroom full of shoe boxes of images. And when I say filled, I mean like we're talking full. And what's funny is some of them are not even of our family. Some of them are just of our clients. But there are definitely thousands and thousands of our family. And then she used to scrapbook too. So she would take them, meticulously and make books just for us. And we can do that digitally now. We don't have to spend 7 hours putting a scrapbook together.
Yeah.
We can create it and send it off and get it to them. They can customize whatever they want, whatever their priority is. Um, but yeah, I mean, hello, we print books. What if you lose your Kindle? Like, you paid for all those books if you can't remember your login.
Yeah.
Our dining room, my husband, he reads and he reads and he reads, and there's like books coming in every day. So our dining room is also a library at this point. Like, every single wall is covered in books. They're in every room of our house. Like, I'm staring at
Mm.
stacks right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So prints are important. They are. They're
Yeah.
tangible. It's great to have something to remember people by that you can touch.
Hmm. I love that. I've seen where people will do like kind of a like a book for the year with their family highlights in it or something, and then they'll
Hmm.
sort of put that. And I like that idea. I was thinking about even the way that we consume video and like video of our families, because it used to be that there was always somebody in the family with like the VHS camcorder on their shoulder, and I literally mean on their shoulder because they were huge at that time, right? Like at
Yep.
every family event, in my family there was like the one uncle that was always there with his camcorder. But the way that you consumed it afterwards was interesting then, because you just record everything back to back. And so whenever that tape filled up, it kind of became its own archive. Like if you wanted to rewatch something, you'd go through it all. You'd fast forward
Hmm.
through it, or you'd just kind of watch the bits of the year. And now our videos are also fragmented. They're just these little clips that are on hard drives, and
Yep.
there's no clean way to sort of watch it and be like, oh, this is a little family archive now. Um, and even with photos, same thing. Like that was the thing. You'd print it, it would go in a shoebox or a scrapbook or something, or it would just be in the envelope it came back from the lab. But it was still in a thing that when you pulled it out to look at one picture, you'd see all the others that were there with it, which I feel like is something that is kind of lost with the digital dark age, as I refer to it. Um, and it's interesting. And I kind of wonder, like, even outside of just like our family history and stuff, like how things like world history are being documented. Like, is that all digital now? Because I mean, I grew up with the World Book encyclopedias. You could go through there and see everything that happened in a year. Like, what is the World Book encyclopedia for last year? Like, and maybe they still make them. I don't know, but they might. But
I don't know either.
I don't know, that just sense of like kind of flipping through things and getting a bird's eye view of the things that happened is just sort of in a weird place right now, I think, when it's only
Yep.
digital.
Yep. Yep. I agree. Um, yeah, so I definitely, I totally agree. And I started actually last year, for all of my sessions. They get proof prints of every edited photo, no matter what. They just get them because, I mean, th- they don't have a choice. I want them to have them
Mm-hmm.
in their hands. So now it's like, even if they don't buy them digital, they have them because they spent an hour with me and they're going to get what they're going to get. Like, I don't want them to
Mm-hmm.
not have them. But yeah, I agree. Actually, that's like the thing that's always held me back from video. I I don't do video because of that. Like, I want something that my kids can hold. I'm very interested in it. I
Mm-hmm.
am fascinated by it, but I don't see myself pursuing that for that very reason. Because how do you present that? How does it go on the wall?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and that's like going on the wall previously would be like a shelf full of VHS tapes of home movies, right? So
Yeah.
again, they'd kind of be out there in front of you where you would see them, and every so often you might be like, oh, let's look at this one. Or grandpa would pull out the wheel of slides or something like that, and you'd go through
Yeah.
all the old photos. Like it just feels so much less intentional to be like, hey kids, let's pull this hard drive out and take a look through it. You know what I mean? Like it's not the same. It's not the same
Yep.
feeling.
I know. We don't
And I
even
don't
do
think people
DVDs
do it.
anymore.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's do you like do you approach that Is that something you talk about with your education thing, like to both families and photographers, is kind of like dealing with how to best preserve their family memories? I mean, because I know you said you include like those proof prints so that people have something tangible.
Hmm. Yeah, I talk about it on my social media a lot. I really need to put a little more on my website. Um, with the Kindred Path, Marie is really wonderful at this.
Mm-hmm.
So she talked about it in our last workshop. She's big into it. She will probably be talking more about it in education later this year. And she's actually doing our Instagram takeover today. So I'm sure she's over there talking a lot about it too.
Nice.
But yeah, like I said, we see this movement coming down, and there are a lot of people interested in it and just don't know where to start. And if we don't know where to start, then our clients definitely don't know where to start.
Mm-hmm.
So learning about that, learning about, you know, Indie Print Co. and Musea and all these things, I mean, it's just mind blowing. I always used um, WHCC just for everything because that was the first account I registered with. So I'm like, oh wow, there's
Mm-hmm.
other things out there.
Yeah.
And there's almost too many things out there. So narrowing it down to what I'm passionate about um, really helps because if I'm passionate about it, they're going to be more passionate about it too. And I can show things. So
Yeah, for sure. For sure. You ever think about writing a book?
yeah. Um, I was prepared for this one because you put it in the email. Um, yeah, it's really funny. I started. I have a couple of education pieces on my website, and they're shorter and very practical. And I went down this long rabbit hole. I want to write one called Uninspired, and it's
Mm,
basically what I was talking about before, where you go through these days and you're like, I'm burnt out. I don't want to do this anymore. I can't find it, and like how to dig down into the shadows of that in order to you know become inspired again, and like what are you afraid of and things like that. So the further I got
mm,
into it, I was like, oh my gosh, this isn't a course, this is a book. um it's like dealing with how your soul reacts to art and things like that. So yes, I'm thinking about it. I obviously have an accidental outline. um but do books sell anymore? I don't know. So maybe it's just going to be like a memoir for me. I don't know. But yeah, I mean,
yeah.
it's basically all of the emotions that I go through as an artist. I'm sure other people do as well. Um, so I've definitely thought about journeying through that and just talking about the cyclical nature of inspiration and how it should
Mm,
ebb and flow, and it's totally normal. And kind of coming out of things like that in order to find more beauty, because the opposite of it sometimes. We see death, and we see sickness, and we see COVID, and we see not being able to be around each other. And we see people not printing their artwork. Sometimes some of that really gets us down. So
mm,
um, that plus being afraid to show yourself because of things like social media. And I mean, when we put something out there, I mean, anyone on the planet can see it. So that means you're open to what you think is the judgment of everyone else on the planet. And I think that's something that we should talk about more, because I
mm.
think it holds a lot of creative people back.
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same thing like I tell my kids when they're like, I'm bored, and it's like, boredom is okay. Boredom is good. It's actually when your brain like stimulates itself into what am I going to do next? Because if you're always just like feeding your brain some new activity, then you don't have time to like be bored and regroup and think through things like that. So that's
Yep.
pretty cool. That's very I like that. I like that topic. I don't think I've heard anybody talk about that in that way. So, do people
Good
buy
to know.
books? I think they do. I mean, I I buy a lot of books and then they sit on my nightstand in a pile because it's hard for me to read paperbacks. So I have intentions about reading books. I want to write a book, but I don't know what I want it to be about yet. I'd like to also do a children's book.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, I mean, we've published The White Wren, but that doesn't really count because it's not like a personal writing. Can't say that I'm a published
Yeah.
author through saying that, but
Just
um,
a publisher.
yeah, just a publisher. But I've been trying audiobook subscriptions recently as a way to like get through books that I want to
Hmm.
hear. So I know people do audiobooks for sure. People
Yeah.
do podcasts and audiobooks because it's something that they can just listen to while they're driving or doing something else. And I think for me, that's just been the struggle is like I like to read books, but when you have kids and like businesses and stuff like that, it's just hard to find enough time to get through a book. Um, I think I read Atlas Shrugged well, not recently, but within the last 5 years, and it took me like over a year to read it because it's already like kind of a hard book to read, just because of the length of dialogue in it. But there were so many pages and so many words, and I had so little time. It was like it took forever.
I know. I try to read before bed, and then I'm like, what was I doing? I was asleep.
Yeah, yeah. So it's interesting, but again, just the way people have kind of changed in the way they consume things, and I don't think audiobooks are bad in and of themselves. It does feel a little bit less um satisfying afterwards. Like I feel weird saying I read this book when I didn't really read it. I just listened to it.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
I mark it off on my Goodreads like read this book, but I'm like, but I didn't really read it. I just listened to
Someone
it.
read it to me. It's story time.
Yeah. Yeah. But I don't know. It's just a new way. I don't think it's necessarily bad, but I also don't want to see paper books go away either because again, going back to the digital dark age thing, I think that you need to have books to leave behind. And we worry so much about like archiving digital data, and yet it's crazy to think that for some books and printed things that at some periods in history there was only one copy of it in the world, and somehow it still made it through and was
Yeah. That's
preserved.
how important it is. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, which is pretty wild. So, well, this was fun. I think we
Yeah.
got through this episode, and minus that little technical glitch in the middle, it wasn't too bad.
Yeah, I mean, it actually behaved very well.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. Well, why don't we wrap up, and if you just want to kind of drop your websites and your social where people can find you and connect with you, if they want to learn more about your business and your endeavors, and we'll kind of wrap up with that.
Yeah. So it's my website is beatificvisionsphotography.com. Beatific is Beatific. There's no U. Um, and Instagram, Beatific Visions Photography. And the Kindred Path is thekindredpath.com. So, we feature sessions from other photographers on there. We ask them what equipment they used, wardrobe, things like that. So it's a great resource to go through. And, if you start recognizing things that you love, being able to kind of connect the dots as to what you love about them. And then on Instagram, it's the Kindred Path.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for jumping in on this, and it was good chatting and getting to learn more about you and your businesses and getting to know each other a little better, and we'll look forward to seeing this one go live.
Yeah, thanks, Brent. It's good seeing you.
There's a place called home, a place called home.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Nested. You can keep up on all things White Wren on our website at whitewren.com or follow us on social media at The White Wren. Tune in again next time and have a wonderful day.
Oh, I've walked for miles and I've traded my time for adventure.